Welcome back, boys and girls. I'm so happy to see you, and I cannot tell you how exciting it's been to see photos and clips of you all engaged in your learning at home as we have kicked off this series. We appreciate everyone's patience while we, the teachers, are having our turn also learning about how we can bring Branch into the home. And we look forward to bringing you other members of our staff into this time with you, and just know that it fills our buckets to be hearing from you and connected with you. And so we just look forward to continuing on. We are starting to talk a little bit about letter Y today. It has been our practice as we journey through the alphabet to ramp up our grand finale with the letter Z. And so we'll look forward to doing that next week. And today, we want to also remind you that even though we're moving quickly from X to Y, we usually spend a lot more time on each letter, that it's a reminder, just like Charlie's alphabet learned, that every letter is important. And just because we are not talking about one individually, it's a great reminder that in their little alphabet family, we need them all in our journey of learning to read and write. We're going to move on to our calendar, and I left up our Wacky Wednesday from yesterday, and sometimes we'll just say, see you next week, Wednesday, and we put this to the side and say we'll see you another time. So I'm going to tuck that one away while we figure out what word is going to go here today. So let's look up and ask that first question our calendar helper asks, which is, what month is it? Remember back in October when we sang that song and we would say, what month is it? And you all would say, October. And we had such a fun song to sing. We're almost done with this month, which is hard to believe, but we have these few more days. So let's make the most of saying that it is, good job, March. We'll come down and see what day follows quarter day. Yesterday being number 25. What number comes after 25? That 2-digit number. Let's start up and see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Touch and count. You can do this. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Good job. You're correct. It is 26. 2 and a 6. Making very sure that we put that 2 first, because otherwise what would it be? That's right. It would be 62. But it's going to be 26. And let's see if it's going to be a boy or a girl in our pattern. Let's see, it looks like muchacha yesterday. So we know today is going to be, you are correct. Kiss your brain. It is going to be a boy. And what color is the border going to be? We restarted our rainbow sequence yesterday by putting up a red. Oh, you're so quick. You are correct. It is going to be orange. Who used their diagonal clue today? There's the diagonal clue, but I know most of you know that after red in the rainbow is the color orange. So we have it here. Ta-da! 26 muchacho, a boy in our pattern, and the orange color in our sequence. So we'll put it there so we can rocket ship straight up. Oh, it's the other. There's 2 days that begin with the T in our week. But Tricky T, you don't fool me, because we know that TH makes the thump a rabbit thump his tail. Thursday. So today is Thursday. Let's do a letter check. Yep, looks good to me. T, T, H, H, U, U, R, R, S, S, D, D, A, Y. Yep, it checks out. So we can say, now I have my yarn out, so you might have trouble seeing it, but you already know what this sentence is. Today is Thursday, March the 26th, 2020. Ends in a period because a sentence is a complete thought. Before we move on to story time, let's just take a look at these 2 letters and the shapes and lines that define them. They sort of look the same at the top, don't they? They both have these diagonal lines going in different directions. The capital X having the 2 longer timber lines. Timber, timber. And the lowercase x having the baby timber, timber lines. So with the Y, it also starts with 2 but shorter timber lines. And instead of coming all the way down, you stop and make a V shape, which reminds me of when we practiced our V and we made Vincent van Gogh vases. It sort of looks like an ice cream cone, doesn't it? Well, to make your Y, you have to then pull down the shade. And for the lowercase y, a baby timber line, and then a longer drop down timber line that makes the lowercase y. It makes a big difference. Just that one line changes one letter to another, and that's why we have to learn how to write it. And don't forget, when you're practicing your letters that have straight lines like A and E and F and even Z coming up, it's fun to use popsicle sticks or pieces of wood, branches from the yard, Q-tips. You can pick something that is straight and practice these letters. We'll be also working on our letters with the curves, which you have already learned. It's much more fun to practice those with shaving cream and sand and Play-Doh and even dirt. So stay tuned, because we want to make sure that you are also doing that at home. For today's story time, I have come over to the Reading Center and brought our Branch Bears with me for a little company so that we can read our book for today called Extra Yarn. You'll quickly see why we read this book this time of year. There's an X in extra, and of course a feature Y word, yarn. Stretchy the word snake would love this one because there's no tricks. All the letters are saying their names clearly. Earn, yarn. And we will be talking about yarn after we read this book. One of the things we talk about in class is the names on the covers of books. So you can impress your families at home by showing what you know. When I say, if Mac Barnett is the author of this book, what did he do? What was his job? Bingo! You are correct. He wrote the story. He wrote the words that make up this book called Extra Yarn. His partner over here, John Klassen, if he is the illustrator of this book, what is his work that he contributed? Kiss your brain. You are correct. He is the artist. He drew the pictures and thought of the design of these pages, and you will be amazed at all the creativity. You can sort of get a clue right now by looking at the way they designed the title. They even gave us a book hook on the back cover. It's always interesting to see if something's written on the back of a book. It says, "This looks like an ordinary box full of ordinary yarn." But it turns out it isn't. Are you curious? Let's get started. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So that's pretty neat because the setting of this story is a little town where everything is only two colors. The color white like snow, or the color black like soot, which is the little particles found in the bottom of a fireplace under the wood that you've burned there. So it's pretty neat that Annabelle found a box of yarn filled with lots of color. So let's keep on reading. She went home and she knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too. Mars is her little dog. So proud in his new sweater. But there's still some extra yarn. When Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed. "You two look pretty ridiculous." "Oh, you're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. He wasn't using his I care language, was he, boys and girls? And he certainly wasn't caring about their feelings. But it turns out He actually was a little jealous. He really wanted a sweater and one for his dog too. But even after she had made a sweater for Nate and his dog, and for herself, and for her dog Mars, she still had what? At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet," said Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone. Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I can't teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Well, there's no problem we can't solve." "Then I'll knit a sweater for everyone, so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." But it turned out that she could, and she did. It's like a school uniform for everyone, including Mr. Norman. And when she was done, what do you think? She still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, for Mr. Pendleton and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer and little Lewis. She made sweaters for everyone except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. So, look what she made for him. Wasn't that a good idea? She made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle had what? Extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats and for other animals too. Soon, people thought, soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even need sweaters. Look what she made. One for and pretty neat, huh? Wow, look. Things began to change in that little town. Wow, Annabelle's really making a difference, isn't she? Do you remember how it looked at the beginning of the story? Big difference. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn. And people came to visit from all around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. They were impressed. Well, one day, an archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. Look, their name began with the same. Archduke starts with A, and Annabelle starts with A. But this is his ship. "Little girl," said the Archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn and I am willing to offer you $1 million. Wow, that's a lot of money, boys and girls, isn't it? Let's see what Annabelle says. No, thank you, said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. Because remember, now she's spreading the color all over the town and making sweaters for things that don't necessarily wear sweaters. Well, the Archduke's mustache twitched. 2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. No, thanks. It's very nice she's still using her eye care language, even though he is being gruff with her. 10 million, shouted the Archduke. Take it or leave it. Leave it, said Annabelle. I won't be selling the yarn. And she didn't. So that night, the Archduke hired 3 bad guys to break into Annabelle's house and steal that box. Boys and girls, that was not a good idea, was it? They certainly were not using their hands to help. They took a box that did not belong to them. Sort of reminds me of when the Grinch stole Christmas from the Who's down in Whoville. That story turned out okay. So let's find out and keep on reading to see what's going to happen here. They set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. Back to his castle. And the Archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. And he took out the box because remember, he loved clothes, and I bet he was hoping to make lots of things with this yarn, just like Annabelle had. But Annabelle had made things for others, and he was being a little greedy, wasn't he? He wanted to make things only for himself. And he lifted the lid and looked inside, and dun, 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 the box was empty. What? Annabelle had never run out of yarn. She always had extra yarn. But not anymore. His mustache quivered. It shivered. It trembled. And the Archduke hurled that box out of the window of the castle and shouted, "Little girl, I'm cursing you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." Whew. That was definitely not nice. Not using his eye care language. But guess what? The little box landed on a little baby piece of the iceberg that had broken off. And the word says, but. And there it goes. Through the night, across the sea. Back to the person it belonged to, who was doing good things with it, wasn't she? Back to the town she had changed. And guess what? It turned out she was happy forever. And she opened her box and knit the whole tree, even with the branches. It reminds me of our Branch Academy tree. Wouldn't it be cool if we had all this color on all the branches of our tree outside? She even went all the way to the tips so that the little animals could have fun and play and also be happy. spreading the love and cheer and happy color all around the town. The end. One other activity that we do at school during Y Week is measuring a yard of yarn for our alphabet book page. This, boys and girls, is called a yardstick. It's 36 inches long. You may not have one at home. I remember using it with fabric a lot, the old-fashioned way. But if you don't, and you have some of these smaller 1-foot rulers, you can take 3 12-inch rulers, because 3 feet equal 1 yard. And this little blue piece of tape on the 1-inch part reminds me of I Week. Do you remember when we read inch by inch and we measured things around the classroom that were either smaller or shorter than an inch or longer than an inch, including those cute little ladybugs that were shorter than an inch, and lots of things that were longer than an inch. But if you put these all 3 together, 12 plus 12 is 24, plus 12 more is 36. And I bet that your mom or dad can find one of these for you, a measuring tape. So you can certainly use that and work on your counting to find your way up to, what number did I say? How many inches are in a yard? Good job. 36 inches, which equals 3 feet. That's what the F stands for, feet. So that's 3 of these. So you can lay it all out and double check to see if it's equal. So yep, that's the same length. And then you can, I'll show you with my yardstick, especially if you don't have one, I can confirm for you that they are all equal in length. And so if you have some yarn or even some string or some raffia, you can take that and measure out your 36 inches. And trim it. And now you have a yard of yarn, and you can walk around your house and hold it up and measure it. And after you find some things that are either shorter than or longer than 36 inches, you can make a note or a little journal about it. And then when you're done using this yarn to measure with, you can make designs with it and even glue it down to a piece of paper. You could just make any kind of shape, a squiggly artistic shape, and glue it down on a piece of paper. Or you can write with it. You can make shapes with it. Let's see, I'm gonna make, maybe I should make a, let's see if you can guess. P for Miss Pop. Why don't you make the first letter of your name? Enjoy. And just to show you, in case you don't have the yardstick at home, I've put ours down to compare all 3 ways of measurement and a way to find 36 inches. They're all equal. So 36 inches on a yardstick, 36 inches on this measuring tape, which equals 3 feet, which reminds you that you can use 3 of these 1-foot measurements to also equal a yard. And then if you have yarn, or string even will work, raffia. Find something that you can stretch to the length of 1 yard and cut it down to 36 inches. And now you can take this piece. I can show you this little writing board right now. Let's measure it. I'm gonna lay my yarn down on one end and I'm gonna stretch it to here. And because I have extra yarn left over, is our writing board shorter or longer than a yard? You are correct. The board is shorter than a yard. And once you're done measuring things, oh, let me check my scissors. From the tip, much shorter, right? So maybe I'll look at the table. The table, if I put the end to the end of the table and I come all the way over, lots more table left. So the table is longer than a yard. And now you can record that data, math and science all at one time, writing down what is longer than a yard or shorter than a yard. And then at the end, you can even pile this up and glue it down to a piece of paper and say, I made this design out of a yard of yarn. You can glue down however which way you want to. Every time you set it down, it comes out different. So it's kind of fun. And also, don't forget that you can write with it, make shapes and letters with it. Maybe you could make the first letter of your name. I made my first letter of my last name. We look forward to hearing what you have discovered in your measuring activity. Have fun.